The beginning of the second perek of Pirkei Avos, the first Mishnah says, Rebbi Omer, Ezehu derech yishara she'avor lo adam. What is the correct straight path that a person should choose? Kol shi tiferes lo yosef v'tiferes lo min adam. Basically, if it gives glory, it's good for your Creator, for Hashem, if He's pleasant with what you're doing, and also other people. Be careful with the light mitzvah, so to say, like a stringent mitzvah, because you don't know the reward of the mitzvahs. Be careful if something looks like an insignificant mitzvah. And calculate the loss, so to say, of a mitzvah compared to its reward. Can I get hefsida? Calculate the reward for sinning versus its loss, the reward for sinning. In other words, when it comes to mitzvah, it's not really such a loss in comparison to the everlasting reward. And the reward for Aveira is nothing, is insignificant compared to the loss, which will be interminable, endless. Look at the following three things, and you will not come to sin. Look at who's above you. It's basically the idea. An eye that watches, ear that hears, and all of your actions are written down in a book. Tiferes Yisrael explains that when the Mishnah says Rebbi Omer, Rebbi is referring to Rebbi Yehuda Nasi. He's called the Rebbi in many places because he was the rabbi of all of the Jews. Take a look at the Rashbam in Baba Kama on page Nunam and Aleph, Daf Nunam and Aleph. Similarly, the Machzor Vitri explains that he's called Rebbi because he taught a lot of Torah to the Jews. He was considered the rabbi of the entire generation. The Mili Davos explains Rebbi has three names: Rebbi, Rebbi Yehuda Hanasi, and Rabbeinu HaKadosh. These three names correspond to the three crowns, so to say, that Rebbi had. The name Rebbi refers to the crown of wisdom. He had Torah. The name Rebbi Yehuda Hanasi refers to Keser Nasius, the crown of leadership and good lineage. He had that as well. He was a descendant of David, good yichus. Furthermore, Rebbi was also very wealthy. The name Rabbeinu HaKadosh refers to the Keser Kedusha, the crown of holiness. Because the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Chesem Abayis says that Rebbi never stuck his hand Tachas Chaguro, under his belt. Tiferes Yisrael explains that everyone said in front of Rebbi in the Beis Medrash what he heard from his rabbi. Everyone said it was the Beis Medrash. What did he hear from his rabbi, the Torah that he heard? Rebbi then organized all the words and wrote the 6 sections of the Mishnah, Shishay Sidrei Mishnah. The Rambam writes in his introduction to the Yad HaChazaka, if Rebbi would not have done this, the Torah would have chas v'shalom gotten forgotten from the Jews. The pasuk therefore says, in other words, sometimes you have to do for Hashem, you have to nullify and go against what it says in the Torah. Sometimes in order to keep the Torah, you have to go against it. Rebbi concluded that if the Mishnayos wouldn't have been written, they would have gotten forgotten chas v'shalom. It should be pointed out that nowadays we can't just apply this and go against the Torah because we think that something's right. Rebbi was able to do this because of his stature and the specifics of that time period, but for us to do it is not so simple. However, Rashi in Baba Metzia and Lamed Gimel Aleph says it's implied that Rebbi orally organized the Mishnayos. So you have a machloikis, there's an argument. According to the Rambam, Rebbi actually wrote the Mishnayos. According to Rashi, he didn't write them, he just orally compiled them. Yes, important machlokes. Tosfos writes that the Mishnayos existed before Rebbi. Rebbi organized them, however. Tosfos Baba Kama and Pei Dalet Mabes. What does it mean you should be careful with all mitzvahs? Rashi explains this is basically analogous to a king, and he told his servants, tend the orchard, the vineyard, but he didn't tell him really he only cared about certain plants and trees. And he didn't tell him specifically which one, because if he would have told him the specifics, the other one would have gotten abandoned. No one would have touched them. Neglected, that's the word. It would have got neglected. Hashem so too didn't reveal the reward for mitzvahs in order that we don't neglect some of the mitzvahs. Medrash Shmuel explains that the nature of people is to belittle acts that have little benefit associated with it. It's on page 72 in the Medrash Shmuel. For example, a doctor, it's just one example, will typically treat the wealthy patient before the poor one. The Mishnah therefore instructs us to be careful with all mitzvahs. Anything, people usually go and do what they're going to make more money with and not what they make less money with. Clients, whatever it is. Medrash Shmuel says no. Be careful with the little mitzvahs as well. All of them are important. What does it mean? Calculate the loss of a mitzvah. Rashi explains one should forget about the financial loss that will occur due to performing a mitzvah. Don't be sad and upset for performing a mitzvah because you lost some money by doing it. Contemplate the tremendous amount of reward that you're going to gain by performing the mitzvah. Rabbi Yonah explains that the reward for performing a mitzvah the reward for performing a mitzvah is thousands of times greater than the loss, so to say. It's explanation one. Explanation two, Tosfos Yom Tov explains that we don't know the reward for performing mitzvahs. Furthermore, Gemara says that we don't get rewarded for performing mitzvahs in this world. Gemara in Kedushin Lamed Tesman Beis, Schar mitzvah b'hal maleka. We don't get rewarded for performing mitzvahs in this world unless there's an exception that we come onto. The true reward is in the next world. The loss, so to say, of physical value is negligible in comparison to the eternal loss of not performing the mitzvah. The loss, so to say. In other words, don't worry about it over here. It's nothing compared to the eternal loss of not performing the mitzvah at all. Explanation three, we have to calculate the reward for a mitzvah versus the financial loss which is going to result from performing the mitzvah. For example, someone who's going to lose money by davening on time. L'chachila, you don't miss the time to daven, even if you're going to lose money, preferably. Ramah writes that regarding davening, which is serving its creator, you shouldn't be concerned about financial losses that will occur. Kuf ches. Even a Talmud Chacham, a scholar, we say that there's a time for Torah, there's a time for davening. It's on Torah, it's on Tefillah, it's Gemara and Shabbos. Taz over there in Kuf Ches Zayin, the Be'er Halacha quotes the Pri Megadim who says that you're not obligated to lose more than a fifth of your money to perform mitzvah. However, according to the Aruch HaShulchan, in Kuf Vav and Zayin, the Ramah is only referring to a case if there's a concern that there's going to be a financial loss. However, if it's clear to him, in other words, that's only talking about if there's a concern that there will be a loss. But if you know for sure there's going to be a financial loss, it's permissible for him not to daven in the proper time, not to undergo the financial loss. All discussion of itself halachically. What does it mean, calculate the reward for sinning? Calculate the reward for sinning, Rashi explains, even though the sin could be pleasurable, no, the loss is forever. Ben Yonah explains that the loss is 1,000 times greater than the current gain. The future pain will be much greater than the current temporary pleasure. Chafetz Chaim says a businessman who hired a wagon driver to transport him to another city. He warned him to make sure the horse doesn't stray from the path. And what happened? He ate a big meal, and the businessman, he dozed off. The wagon driver also fell asleep. The horse veered off the side, and the whole wagon flipped over. Businessman yelled at the wagon driver for falling asleep and losing control of the horse. The wagon driver said, "What do you mean? My horse is very smart. I was confident that I could rely on it not to go astray." Businessman answered, "You fool. Even if your horse is the wisest of all horses, it's still only a horse. The temptation of the food for the horse is too great of a lure, even for the smartest of horses. The same applies to people. As long as the soul keeps a smart watch over the body, ensuring that it doesn't stray from Torah path, everything is good. However, if we allow our soul to doze off and say the body is just going to do its own thing, the body is going to stay unwashed. It's pretty foolish because the body left on its own won't be able to withstand temptation. Mishnah therefore commands us to calculate the so-called reward of sin versus its loss. Meaning, we have to keep our focus on the long-term goal. This is actually quoted in the article, this story. And let the eternal needs govern the temporary desires. What's the explanation of know who is above you? The Rabbi Yonah explains someone who is in front of kings is embarrassed to do and say certain things that aren't good. This is how we have to imagine ourselves constantly and realize that we're always in front of the King of all kings, Hashem. Shimshon Farrell Hirsch explains that we have to never forget the consequences and repercussions of everything we do, that they reach far beyond the fleeting time span in which our act occurred. Everything will be recalled when we die. We have to be aware of the long-term consequences, also quoted by the article. Ramchal explains a beautiful idea. Mitzvah Sharon Parak Chaf. Hey, this whole idea I saw on the article over there on the Mesilas Yesharim. We can't see our actions being observed, our words are heard, and everything we do is recorded. We can't see any of that. It's difficult to picture that in our mind. But the Chafetz Chaim once said, it's in the Shem Olam, the end of the volume 1. And he said that due to technological advancements, we could easily understand this. We could easily understand this from the invention of the telescope, phone, and camera. Telescopes, we could see actions from someone miles away, even without his knowledge. We could see into space. This makes it easier for us to understand the mission, the line in the mission that Hashem could see us and our actions from far away. Ayin Roa, he could see us. Before phones were created, it was unimaginable. You could whisper words in one place and you could hear it thousands of miles away. This makes us easier to understand Oz and Shamas, that Hashem could hear everything. Cameras, videos, what we're doing right now, you put up a video, it's there forever. It's easy to understand how everything that we do is recorded. An action that's privately recorded can be seen many years later. And everything that we do, all of our actions are written. The increase of technological advancements since the time that the Chafetz Chaim made this point even strengthens this idea. The Chafetz Chaim explains that the development of these technological advancements were not there, did not occur now because we're better than the previous generations. It's the opposite. These technological advancements were invented and resulted because of our qualitative spiritual decrease. Earlier generations were able to accept all aspects of Torah and the mitzvahs and Hashem's all-encompassing knowledge, and that He sees everything and records everything. However, later it became necessary to demonstrate these aspects of our faith in everyday life, aka by having